Hey, everybody. Welcome to Be the Change, driving intersectional equality and inclusion. I am so excited to be here today. This is my second year moderating this incredible panel with incredible guests. And listen, last year the theme was all about acceptance. Acceptance matters, and it still matters today. But I like to say we're kicking it up a notch because the stakes are so much higher. And more than ever, we need to be champions for advocacy and activism. And our focus can no longer just be on acceptance matters. It's got to be about protecting our Black friends in the community, our trans friends in the community, and fighting racism, period. There is no place for racism in our world, and we are going to do everything we can to do our parts to fight it. And this is a conversation all about that and how we can really drive real action to foster these intersectional equalities with the Black and the LGBTQ plus community. So we have a lot to cover. I don't want to keep talking. I want to introduce you to my guests. So what I'm going to do is dive into the first question. And for my amazing guests, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself and then answer the question, that would be great. So we are kicking it off with Pride Month. I love me some Pride Month. And listen, it looks different this year. There's no parades all throughout the country, all throughout the world. All the street celebrations are canceled. But that doesn't mean that the spirit of pride and equality is gone. We are keeping that alive. So for all of my panelists here today, what does equality mean to you? And how do you plan to take action during a time when action seems like, or the action we're used to taking seems like it's not there? How do you plan to take that action yourself for equality?
Peppermint, you start, please.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Peppermint, and I am probably best known for my appearance on RuPaul's Drag Race. I've also been on Broadway and some film and television, and I certainly love to stay on all of the social media platforms, speaking out for equality when I'm not marching in the streets for it. And I'm really happy to be here. So hello, everyone. And thanks for that question, Tommy. I think that it's obvious. I knew when, as soon as the pandemic of COVID-19 hit us, that Pride was going to look different. Everything was going to look different. And then when we had several instances of more videos of police brutality and murdering of unarmed Black men, I knew that the entire world was starting to shift and change. And I honestly wasn't sure exactly how these things were going to connect with the LGBT Pride initiatives and movement towards equality. And I didn't know how things like the Title VII decision that we're celebrating yesterday that protects LGBT individuals in their workplace. I didn't know how that was going to be viewed through the lens of 2020, but I'm really grateful, although many of these things have had taken a terrible toll on many communities, specifically Black and Brown communities and communities of that are in poverty. I'm really grateful that we have the opportunity to re-examine not only the police force, not only healthcare, not only Pride organizations and how they implement and interact with communities of color, but the entire country. I'm glad we're able to reevaluate the connections and really realizing that all of these things are very intersectional. And there's no such thing as either the LGBTQ community or the Black community. There's no LGBT community without the existence of the Black community, and there's no Black community without the LGBT community. They intersect, and I'm standing right in the middle of those things. And so I'm happy that we're able to have a conversation that really draws upon each of these topics and allows us to look at each thing simultaneously.
Great. And Nick, how do you plan to go after this big concept of equality and take action to make sure that this is a fight that we're still fighting, even though these events are canceled this year?
Hi, so yes, my name is Nick Adams. I'm the Director of Transgender Representation at GLAAD. For those of you who don't know, GLAAD is a nonprofit organization that is a media advocacy organization. So we work with media content creators as they're developing stories about our community to give them the resources and make the connections to advocates within the community that they need to to get the story right as they're creating it. And my job mostly is to work with Hollywood. So I am the Director of Transgender Representation at GLAAD. I'm a transgender man. I transitioned in 1997 and I started working at GLAAD in 1998. So I have been working a very long time to try to help Hollywood specifically do a better job of telling transgender stories. And that was a pretty frustrating task for most of the time that I was at GLAAD. We would sort of take one step forward and three steps back, and nobody was really interested in engaging in how to do a better job of telling transgender stories. But that really started to change about 6 years ago. I think I can see the sea change starting with Orange is the New Black and Laverne Cox's amazing performance on that show and the way she used that opportunity to become an advocate for the community and to speak out on the issues that are affecting us. And it's like all of Hollywood took a look at that show and Laverne and went, so you mean we can write multidimensional trans characters and hire trans actors to play them? And from that moment on, I've been sort of inundated with requests from showrunners and writers' rooms and casting directors and network executives and publicists to help them try to improve the way they've portrayed trans people in film and TV. So it's been an incredibly exciting time to work at GLAAD, especially over the last 6 or 7 years. And, to that end, while I love Pride like every queer person, and it provides this huge opportunity to tell the media to look at our community, to look at both the strides we've made and yet how much further we have to go, I also have the joy of being able to work on these issues 12 months out of the year because it's my job. So right now is an incredible moment in our history as a community to lift up, elevate, and amplify the stories of Black LGBTQ people in our community, other people of color, who have sometimes not gotten as much representation in the media as we need them to have. So for me, it's like right now, just taking advantage of this media moment that has been created by so much grassroots on-the-ground advocacy from people in big towns and small towns across this country, and help the media frame it and amplify that message far and wide. So that's what I do in June, and thankfully that's what I get to do 12 months out of the year.
I love that. That's important work you're doing. That's incredible. Dawn, Randall?
Hey, so Dawn, I will give the floor to you.
That's very... Thank you, Nick. I have a 12-month job, but my job is actually as a journalist. I am not an activist. I have often been called that just because I happen to write about our rights. And I have gone from tearing my hair out over J.K. Rowling and having a man in the White House who wants to take away the rights of every transgender American to get health care and health insurance, to celebrating the most conservative justices giving me the rights that I should have had when I was fired from ABC News and in 2018 fired by a local company. In both cases, I had to basically rely on lawyers to tell me, you're just not going to win. Their lawyers are just too good. They're too big. It's just not going to happen. So we settle. And that's what trans people have been doing forever. We've been settling. We've been waiting for the Equality Act. We waited for every kind of opportunity for us to be treated as equal. And for me, now I feel like the tide is turning. We had thousands of people turn out in Brooklyn this weekend, marching for trans rights. Boston, the march in Washington, people are getting it. And my important message for Pride is that Pride goes on because it's in here. I'm the managing editor of Outsports. I came out in 2013 as the first transgender journalist in television network news. And I was also the first one to get fired. But the point being that at Outsports, we celebrate, it's true, Peppermint. I don't usually mention that part. we at Outsports, we're an LGBT sports news site. And since my hire back in February of last year, pardon me, would you let her in? Thank you, that's my dog. Since my hire last year, my job has been trying to make the site more like America. More black faces, more brown faces, more women, not just white gay men. And to their credit, the co-founders did a lot of stories about transgender and lesbians and people of color. But now we do even more. And our staff is more diverse. We're 14% African American. So for me, it's not enough. For me, Black Lives Matter is a pride story, because it wouldn't be pride if it was not for the brown and black women at Stonewall. And I'm very proud to be part of this, and I acknowledge my privilege. Male privilege got me where I am. White privilege still helps me in many ways. And I feel like my position, more than anything, is to step up from the table, give my seat to someone else, and hold the mic in front of someone who needs to have the microphone. I'm here to amplify voices, and I'm very proud to have written some, really important stories. But my job, more than ever, is to make sure that other people get a chance at that microphone.
Thank you, Dawn. And beautifully said. My God. Yes, yes, yes. And Randall, please.
Yeah. You know what? I'm so excited to share the stage with really cool people that we've had a chance to chat over the last hour or so. When we think about equality and what that means, the first thing that comes to my mind is when a person's, their voice, their life, their perspectives, and economic value and wealth in society is no more or no less than anyone else's. And over the last 20 years, I've dedicated my life to driving inclusion and diversity within organizations, and really proud to work for MasterCard. That is a very forward-thinking organization in this space. And so very excited to be here. I think that the work still continues. So from a representation perspective, from who we buy our products and services from, how we brand our company, are all things I keep top of mind as we continue to do this work in light of not being able to be on a float. The work still continues. It just looks a little bit different.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you know what, guys? I feel like allyship is, being an ally is such a big word right now. It's like this buzzword. And a lot of people who aren't part of the LGBTQIA plus community want to know how to be a better ally. But I would argue it's also up to us internally to figure out how we can be better allies. So to you guys, and please feel free to just shout some answers out. In the absence of this physical pride event, which is what some people consider the #1 way to go and physically show that you're being an ally, how can we still show up for the community in ways that are just as impactful, if not more?
I think it's really less about performing allyship this year, and actually engaging in the work, whether the people who are around you who may be LGBTQIA plus or Black and brown and people of color, whether they are aware of it or not. I think it's really more about having those conversations in the spaces that those people don't have access to. That's real allyship to me. It's nice for you to let me know that you care that I am connected to certain issues, but it's more beneficial for all of us, for you, whoever that person is, to go and actively work at dismantling those systems that are continuously victimize and oppress these marginalized communities. And so for someone who's cis and straight and doesn't consider themselves a part of the LGBTQIA community, maybe we need to make a little bit of a paradigm shift. I mean, I know definitions can matter in some regards, but and there's certainly no taking away from the bond that people have who do identify as LGBTQIA plus. But for those people who are cisgender and straight, maybe it's about not looking at us as other and looking at us as a part of the same community. Maybe instead of you saying, well, that's the gay community and they have a pride parade and I wear a flag and I hope they're okay, maybe you actually consider an attack on us, our humanity, our healthcare, as an attack on yours. And then maybe we will get somewhere a lot sooner than you just putting on a t-shirt.
Right, I love what Peppermint just said. It's not a spectator sport. Humanity is not a spectator sport, and so when one of us hurts, we all hurt. And since we've been given, lemons for the Pride Parade, I think we should just make some lemonade and put some sparkling water in it, or your beverage of choice. But I do
The sponsor's beverage of choice.
But I think it falls on two different lenses. I think the LGBT plus community has things that they can do, and then our allies can do. So, like mentoring, like sponsoring someone else's life, self-care of yourself, and kind of recalibrating are all things that are really helpful in this moment. We're in a very tricky situation where we're living through history, and I think we have to take the time to be the best to ourselves that we can be. But at MasterCard, again, work for a great company. Last year, we launched True Name Initiative. So if those are in the transgender community, non-binary community, having issues with just what's in a name, what's in a pronoun, everything is in that, because do you know how hard it's taken someone to gain their freedom? And so at MasterCard, that's what we want to do, is make sure that people's chosen names are reflected on the card, as well as internally, which is great. We also have the pronouns. So aside on our signatures, we can put our pronouns to better identify ourselves. And we've done a lot of work around our benefits to make sure that they're gender neutral and incorporating all sides of our community. So a lot of work to be done, but at the first point of it, self-care, and then kind of reaching out to do the best you can.
Fantastic. For me, there are 3 S's. It's stand up, speak out, and show me the money. Stand up means when there's a march, when there's a parade, when there's something, when there's just a conversation, stand up and offer your opinion. That goes to speak out. I have a lot of people who I'm their only transgender friend. And all I ask of them is, when they're in a conversation which I'm not part of, and somebody talks about me or trans people, that I expect them as my friends to stand up and say, well, I know someone, and let me tell you what this really is about. And then last is show me the money. Trans Lifeline, so many other worthy charities, GLAAD, the National Task Force. We need support. And I don't think that people understand that among the LGBT community, trans people are the most marginalized, and Black trans women are the most threatened. And we need to fund these causes, especially Black Lives Matter, to make inroads so that we can finally have some kind of equality. I don't know if I'll see it in my lifetime. I'll be very honest. I'm a journalist, so I'm a natural cynic and pessimist. I didn't think Monday was going to happen.
I must be a journalist too.
And there you go. There you go. And Peppermint, can I just say, you bring the 4th S in stunning.
Amen. And Nick, anything you would like to add?
I mean, I will just add that, you started out by saying I think that the theme last year was acceptance, and acceptance is not enough, but I think it's a critical piece of the puzzle. Like, this is achieving justice and equality is we need a multi-pronged attack. We need people in the streets. We need people donating money. We need people learning and educating themselves about the conversations that we've been having in the Black community and in the LGBT community for a very long time. But we know that the 1964 Civil Rights Act did not eliminate white supremacy and did not eliminate racial injustice in this country. And this huge victory yesterday that we got, which is stunned me. I was fully expecting a loss. So when I woke up yesterday morning after the horrible week that we had last week within the community with J.K. Rowling and others attacking trans people, the Trump administration, to see that victory yesterday was just, I needed that so desperately. But that is, legal protections are essential and we have to have them, but that doesn't mean that it changes people's behaviors. We have to get through to people who think that they've never met a transgender person, for example. Right. Depending on how you ask the question, only about 20% of Americans say that they think they've met somebody who's transgender in their real life. More Americans say they've seen a ghost than say they've met a transgender person. So they don't feel like they know us yet. Yes, Pat.
Nick, that reminds me.
Oh my God!
Chris Pointer had me write up a meme for him, and it was, you've already peeked to a transgender person. Get over it.
I'm sorry, wait. Our poor interpreter. One person at a time. What were you saying, Dawn?
I was saying that Chris Mosier asked me during the bathroom bill battles to come up with a meme, and we came up with this one. You've already peed next to a transgender person. Get over it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
So
That's
people
too funny.
think they haven't met us, and therefore, the acceptance levels are not as high as we need them to be. So again, this is just a multi-pronged attack. Donate to causes that support and empower Black trans women and other trans women of color. These demonstrations in the streets like we had in Los Angeles and Brooklyn over the weekend, but also we still need to work on the acceptance piece and getting people to understand basic things, like we are who we say we are. Like we're not a threat to you just because we need to be ourselves. And, the statistics, when you look at the statistics, especially that affect the trans community, the best survey we have is the U.S. Trans Survey that was conducted by the National Center for Transgender Equality. And in that survey, even I was surprised to see that 68% of the respondents said they didn't have one piece of identity document that matches the name and pronoun they use every day. So just imagine trying to go through life, not having a single ID document that says you are who you say you are, that matches who you know yourself to be and how you live in your day-to-day life. And the reasons for that number being so high are the obstacles that governments and bureaucracies put into place to make that difficult. It's expensive. It's incredibly complicated. So that's just one small example, and that's why the MasterCard True Name thing was great, because it allows people to have one thing that has their actual name on it, Right. But there are so many other examples of things we need to do to achieve true equality and social justice. And the victories in the legal system are fantastic. We need the Equality Act to pass in Congress and a president who will sign it. But I also do believe that acceptance, educating people, talking to them about our stories, letting them hear from us is going to be that culture change that we need that will really make those legal victories work the way they're supposed to work.
And I think what I'm hearing from everybody is it's not just showing up, it's putting in the work. It's educating ourselves. Right. It's doing the actual work that it takes to get change to occur. And that's something that I think is really important. Listen, I am a white gay man, and with this recent Black Lives Matter movement that has really just surfaced in such a big level, I've been putting in the work and educating myself. I'm not looking for everyone to teach me things that I don't know. And I consider myself obviously not a racist human being, and I'm for everybody in the world. But that doesn't mean the work has to stop there. You can always learn and educate yourself. So I love what everybody is saying. I am so with you on that. And I think with a little hard work and education and resilience, we can all become better allies to the community and to ourselves. So I want to shift gears for a minute. And we have had so many victories in this community. We've been talking about one we had yesterday from the Supreme Court, which was such a win, being that people in the community can't be fired anymore. But of course, there's still a long way to go and a lot of work that has to be done specifically for the Black transgender community, as so many have said on this panel today. So how do we actually spark these meaningful changes that really support the transgender community and get work done and help anybody who's struggling with their own identities? How do we do this?
I can go first.
Maybe it's not the easiest question to answer.
It's not the easiest question, but here's the thing. I mean, I think we have a lot of brain power here that we could solve world peace if we needed to. But I think it starts with
put in overtime.
Let's do it, Ms. Peppermint. I have seen your shows. I have been there, so I know that you can solve a lot. What I would say again, I mean, it starts with us. I think each of us is either a headwind or a tailwind to making sure that someone feels included, invited, and they feel like they're a human. And so you don't need big systems. It's important, but it starts with us. And so if someone is out there just saying a hello or how are you doing could save someone's life. It literally could save someone's life. I've heard the conversations where some people have been so marginalized they don't even feel that they exist or are part of society. The other piece, I think, is around education and awareness. And I think we just brought it up in our last segment around the educational piece and people saying that I don't know someone that's trans or I don't know someone that's gay. Yeah, you do. If you literally, I went through my history as a kid and I thought I was the only one. Then I kind of turned back and was like, all those people were gay, but no one said anything. No one said a thing. No one said a thing. I was like, I'm not an island by myself. So I think that opportunity for storytelling, open dialogue, as well as making sure that people are able to tell their story in a very safe space and have that conversation to dispel myths as well as stereotypes. Because everyone thinks the boogeyman or the ghost or the scary person is gay or the scary person is trans. And all along, they've had people in their lives that have been that. And so I think if we're able to share those stories and just be transparent, that'll take us a long ways.
Yeah, I really do think one of the keys is just for people generally understanding the idea of intersectional identities and understanding that, you know, while we do have a lot of, especially in film and television and art and entertainment, there are archetypes and kind of stories that we tell that kind of fit into really neat boxes that most folks really don't only fit into one box or even two. And the more we can acknowledge our connection to all these things, not only how the issues themselves are connected, but our connection to all of these things, then we can understand. It kind of maybe sounds very like esoteric, but like as humans on this planet, we're all connected, right? That means our issues are all connected, our desires, our needs, our wants are all connected. And so in a more practical way, that means, again, there's not going to be a law that affects only women. There's not going to be a law that affects only people of color. There's not going to be a law or a practice or a policy that affects only LGBT people. It's impossible without affecting all those other groups. And then on a very interpersonal level, I think the best way to really get to where we need to go is really re-examining every one of us as an individual, examining our relationship and our relationship to racism and white supremacy and sexism and homophobia and transphobia. We each are connected to systems or processes or events that could potentially perpetuate some of these notions. Whether we like to look at it or not, we all have a stake to claim in both ameliorating, but also really solving these problems. And so, you know, when we look at white supremacy or when we look at homophobia, yes, it's the policies, as Nick was saying, are really important. But like really saying, what is our relationship to these things? Maybe we don't think we know someone who's trans or gay or in the community, but whether we know we do or not, doing whatever we can to maybe not ask when we see a child, oh, is that a girl or a boy? Maybe we don't ask that. We don't know who's trans or not. We don't know if that person, you know, maybe maybe instead of when we see a little child, instead of saying, do you have a boyfriend, you know, when they're in school or something like that, maybe not asking that question because assuming that they're heterosexual. So these are things that we can do in our own behavior that don't necessarily mean we have to go out and join some club. You know, we can just modify the behavior and what we demonstrate interpersonally. I know there was a long answer, but that's the answer.
I love
Good
it.
answer. No.
Connor, Nick?
And Tommy, I just wanted to say, I wanted to say what you said before about doing the work. A lot of trans people, I'm sure Peppermint understands this too, and Nick, we often get asked to explain things. Well, you know what? I'm not fucking Google, all right? Pardon my French, but there are so many resources now in our current environment in which you can do the research, you can do the work, you can find out about these things. It's same goes with Black Lives Matter. You know, find out for yourself. I'm encouraging people to do the work. And yes, I am one of these so-called community leaders who people ask questions of, and I don't mind doing it in this forum. This is fantastic. I'm so grateful to be here, and I'm sorry I cussed. But I'm just so frustrated by the fact that many people, relatives included, expect me to be their, like, you know, Encyclopedia Brown. I have to be their guide. And no, I don't. I don't have time. I'm a single mom raising 3 kids, and I got 4 part-time jobs. Could you possibly use Google?
Well, I have another resource recommendation other than Google, but yes, I agree with that. And thank you for your comments, Peppa and Randall. I want to say, you know, there's so many answers to your question in terms of how to dismantle like the structural inequalities that affect all of us. And I feel like, you know, in my job at GLAAD, I can just do one small piece of that puzzle. And that piece is to use the power of the media to amplify trans stories in a way that's going to reach those people who think they've never met a trans person. I mean, we could collectively go around and knock on every door in America and shake people's hands and say, hello, you've now met a trans person. But that would take a very long time. So I want to use mass media to reach them. And so there's a quote from Vito Russo, who was one of GLAAD's founders who wrote The Celluloid Closet. And back then he said, and I'm sort of paraphrasing, but I think I have it right. He said, Hollywood, the great myth-making machine, taught straight people what to think about gay people and gay people what to think about themselves through those portrayals that they put in film and TV. And the same is true for trans people. So Hollywood has also taught cis people what to think about trans people and trans people what to think about ourselves. So my little piece of the work that I can do with my little shovel is work to make those media images that are coming out of Hollywood better, so that if you don't get a trans person knocking on your door saying hello, you might run across one on TV or in a movie. And I just want to take a moment to say that on Netflix right now, there is a documentary called Disclosure, that full disclosure I'm in, but is a look back at 120 years of Hollywood's portrayal of trans people, starting with silent film all the way through Pose. And you really see, when you put all that transphobia together in one compact 90-minute documentary, it's kind of stunning to look at. And you realize how much these people around us have absorbed from Hollywood and TV about who we are. And none of it is good. So it's so time. And we're at this tipping point moment in Hollywood where creators want to do the right thing, and transgender people are getting empowered to tell their own stories in Hollywood, which is critical. So that's the piece. I think that Disclosure will be powerful for people to watch, because when you can see all of those lies that Hollywood has told about trans people separate and apart from you, and you realize what you learned from it, if you're trans or if you're cis, it's a very liberating moment, even though those clips are hard to watch. So that's one thing people can do to educate themselves, is watch Disclosure on Netflix, to just be one little tiny piece of the conversation that we need to be having right now.
And I think these are such great ways to truly make change. Go ahead, Peppermint, please.
I was going to say, I can't wait to see Disclosure. I've been waiting to view it, and I'm so happy that it's going to be on Netflix. Another thing that people can do, I've partnered up with MasterCard and GLAAD and NYC Pride to put on an event called the Black Queer Town Hall event, which is taking place also on the same day that Netflix releases Disclosure on June 19th, this Friday. But it's every single day this weekend. It's going to be airing on GLAAD and NYC Pride's Facebook and YouTube pages. And this is taking this one step further than what Nick was talking about, how Hollywood has told our stories historically. This is the ability for Black queer folk to get together and tell our own stories through performance, conversation, healing, round tables. And it's myself and Bob, the drag queen, who are the hosts. So I would love for everyone to go to blackqueertownhall.org. It's free, and check it out.
Yes.
I don't know about you all, but I am feeling inspired right now, because yes, like I said, we do have a ways to go in terms of, you know, getting more equal rights and getting everyone to a place where the basic human right of being a human being is enough for us all, right? And we don't have to fight for all these other things. We do have a ways to go until we get to all those rights. But what you guys are saying is there's so much we can do in the meantime to educate, to amplify, to support, to move the needle. So there's hope, and there's no loss of inspiration there, because we all can do things. And like you guys just mentioned with the documentary and the events, I mean, it doesn't stop. So I encourage everybody watching to continue the education piece, which is so important to really make any sort of change. Now, in the interest of time, I want to keep moving forward. I have a few more great questions that I think you guys would provide amazing insight in. And this one has to do with corporate businesses amplifying the messages of the LGBTQIA community. So what role do you guys see these private partnerships and corporate America, we'll call it, in playing and having a change for equality and creating that change for equality. And I just kindly ask if we can keep these answers a little quicker so we can get to our final question. That would rock.
No problem. I guess let me start since I'm part of a corporate machine. But I think, the easiest way to answer this is how I started, that, over 20 years in doing this work and working for really great organizations that values the lives and respects the backgrounds of everyone, and MasterCard is one of those organizations. And so the way that we show our commitment and support is literally through action. That's the only way a company can really do it, is they put their money where their mouth is. They have put the things in place that will make sure that we have representation, that we are buying and procuring products from LGBT plus suppliers, and that we're engaging our employees to bring their full self to the organization. And then having, those examples like true name and the pronouns, all of those, and then being part of HRC's 100% on the CEI. All of those things are proof points that show that we're headed in the right direction. Are we there yet? No, but we know that we can do more and we can do better, but this is a great start.
Anyone else?
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the HRC
You
Equality Index, because I will say, since I transitioned in the late 90s, I fully remember that before the Affordable Care Act, health insurance would not cover transgender people. Simply being transgender was considered a pre-existing condition, and they could deny you a policy because you had a pre-existing condition. Or if you had a policy, it inevitably had a trans exclusion clause, which meant that they could deny you coverage for both transition-related health care, but also anything. And so before the ACA, one of the ways that we began to get health insurance coverage as trans people was two trans advocates joined the HRC council that created that equality index and said companies can't get 100% unless they offer trans healthcare to their trans employees. And companies wanted that 100%. So they started making sure that their insurance policies that they were offering their employees did not have the trans exclusion clause. Companies making that decision because they wanted that 100% rating drove the culture change that allowed the ACA. And I bring this up because that ACA ruling 1557, which requires health insurance companies not to discriminate against us, is what Trump was trying to roll back on Friday last week. So there is a connection there.
I have a friend who's a scholar. She's a mentor. She's an author. Her name is Jennifer Finney Boylan. And Jenny Boylan told me the story that her mom told her when she came out, which is nobody can hate you if they know your story. And that's why at Outsports, one of the things I try to do is to fill our website with stories of people coming out. LGBTQ, everyone under the rainbow. And these are our most popular stories because we see in each other the courage to be who we are. And what I hope we can all do is to amplify those stories. And that's one of the things I love doing is telling people stories, because once someone gets to know you, it really is hard for them to hate you.
Right.
I think the moment in time that we're, first of all, everything, I agree with everything. I second everything that everyone said. And I agree with it. And I think going further, than, because doing drag performance in New York City, I've had the opportunity to be a part of many a Pride celebration, and I've witnessed pretty much every single company that has ever come through the parade, rainbow washing their float. I've seen it all. I've heard all the rhetoric and the talk and the pledges, and I've seen it all. And it honestly, at one point in time, it felt very nice just to have, oh, look, they changed their logo to rainbow. And that felt great. But now that I believe that we are in a new age of accountability and sort of self-evaluation, both as individuals, I think it also goes with larger companies. Yes, it's important that you show up and participate and donate money to certain causes, but it's extremely important that you actually implement a lot of those things in your companies, and not only at the lower level, at the administrative level and in positions of power, whether it's an entertainment company or a corporate business, finance, whatever, it's important that we actually infuse your company with the same exact ideals and practices that you're claiming to be a part of on the outside. And I think that's really the ultimate key. And that, coupled with everything that everyone said, is, I guess, we'll find out when we get there.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more with everyone in Peppermint. I absolutely agree. It's not just what you put out. It's not just a product. It's not just throw a rainbow on a t-shirt. It's what you're doing in the company as well to really make a difference for the community. And Randall, I just have to say the work MasterCard does is so incredible. You guys are trailblazers. I wish that every company would look to you for how to really set the stage on what to do in terms of inclusion. And I just personally want to thank you guys because I think you're doing everything right in terms of changing the conversation for the better of the community.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. And
yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's just not me because it's a team of us. And so the organization has leaned in. And so I'm the mouthpiece for it. But I think in order for any organization to even consider doing anything that we've done, as well as other contemporary organizations, it takes the entire village to carry this across the finish line.
Well, you guys are great role models. And again, I'm speaking for, I know a lot of people who will be watching this. Thank you. And I want to finish up talking about a topic that, Peppermint, you kind of touched upon it earlier, and it's, the need for a powerful dialogue around intersectionality. And we're in this continued fight right now, this important fight for Black Lives Matter and equality for our trans friends and for the entire LGBTQIA community in general. So how do we encourage individuals to use their voice and ignite action towards making this world more inclusive? A lot of people sometimes have the right intention and they want to show support, but they're afraid or they think they'll be looked at a certain way. So what advice can everyone give on how to really start making these necessary changes to become more inclusive?
I would say that if you are an individual who's watching this, well, you're probably on the right path if you're watching this. But if you are an individual who looks around you and says, well, I don't witness any racism, and I don't witness any transphobia, and I don't witness any homophobia, and I don't witness any of these things that people are talking about, none of this seems to affect me, then you are probably in the perfect position to begin the work of dismantling all those things. Because if you don't think that you're affected by those things, then that means that you are you are in a position, you are in an area that operates from a place of privilege, that you don't visually see that you're affected by those things. And that means you could probably benefit from having some conversations with the people around you to get them involved in speaking out. And I know that it's scary when you are speaking out, when you're in that situation and you feel like you don't witness any of those things and you realize that these are systems that are in place. Then the next step is, what does that mean for my relationships with different people? And you may be afraid that if I speak out on homophobia or transphobia or racism or sexism and misogyny, I might lose some friends or some relationships. And let's just be real. You may lose some friends. You may lose some relationships. And that is okay, because people are losing their lives.
Right.
So do the work and have the conversation.
Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely.
I'll add one thing to that. I had a conversation with a colleague, and he says, I'm not a racist. And I said, no one's saying you're a racist. But, you can say racist things and not be a racist. It's perception. You need to be aware of what you're saying and what you're exposing, what you're putting out there. Perhaps you didn't think of it as a racist expression or a racist position, but people are taking it that way. You need to re-examine why it is you would say that. Where did you come from? What your privilege is.
And what I would add to that is I kind of live it, just like Peppermint said. I'm at one of those intersections. So I'm Black and I'm gay and I'm a guy and married to a white guy. So there's a lot going on in my house. So there's a too funny, but But one of the things I think is really important is that each of us cannot dispute someone's experience or their feelings. And so when in opportunities for us to be in positions of power or positions where our voice and platform is heard, is for us to tell those stories, because we could be saving the life of someone else or giving someone hope or encouragement that they can get to the same places that we can. I know it's hard because some people don't like rejection. None of us like rejection. But until we have folks that are in our own community and being able to speak up in meetings when someone's making an off comment about someone that's gay or someone that's transgender, speaking up on our own and sharing our own experiences, I think that's when we start to see a little bit more changes, when we as a community step up and show our voices and our faces in our own communities.
And I think we have to remember we're all on this together, and we're all here to lift one another up and support each other. And we have to take responsibility to take a stand against anyone who's being racist or not inclusive or any of those horrible things. And we have to stand up. We are out of time, but I have one more quick question for you guys. And real quick, how are you celebrating Pride?
In my living room, wearing all of the outfits and gowns and doing all of the shows. And I'm so excited. And celebrating Pride, kicking off NYC Pride with MasterCard, GLAAD, and NYC Pride for the Black Queer Town Hall. And then I'm going to watch Disclosure.
Amazing. Anyone else?
Disclosure's on my watch list too. Yeah. And we've got our Pride flag and our transgender flags flying. We live in a progressive neighborhood in Connecticut, and I'm so glad to be a transgender straight dad to a gay son, a bisexual daughter, and a 13-year-old boy who says, I don't know what I am, but I know I'm not straight. And I said, that's cool.
I love that. Randall, Nick?
I am also celebrating Pride in my house, largely here in Los Angeles. My husband and I have been together 19 years, and we finally got married earlier this year. And then it's been so busy that we haven't had a chance to have a honeymoon. So my hope is that my Pride celebration will be after June is over, we can actually maybe leave the house and go somewhere and have a honeymoon.
Go to the store. Go to the store.
Good for you. I love that. And Randall, for you.
Trader Joe's honeymoon.
What I'm going to do is I want to take a break, a little bit relaxing, but I have so many friends like in different places, so we're going to do a big old LGBT gay Zoom call for Pride. And so we're going to have our little setups in our homes. And so from Australia to London to here, we're all going to be on the same place and toasting to, all the work that we as a community have tried to do, and then toasting to the future of where things will be.
I love that. Well, you all make me proud to be part of this community. And I want to say thank you for joining us today. You offered such incredible insight into the changes we need to make. Thank you, MasterCard. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Happy Pride.